Arsenal's well-documented slow start to the season has everybody asking, when will they climb out of this hole that they're in at the top of the table? This is the ArsenalVision Post-Match Podcast. My name's Elliot Smith. You can block me on Twitter, Yankee Gunner. Yeah, that's right. Everybody's been so, anxious about this slow start for Arsenal. Things aren't clicking. Things aren't working. And, it's getting late. We're a third of the way through the season. And if Arsenal don't click soon, they may not be able to get out of this difficult position they've put themselves in, being, top of the Premier League, which I don't know what on earth they would do about that. So what a weekend, huh? What a weekend. I mean, Everton didn't do the job, but that's okay. If you look at United's fixture list, Erik ten Hag is going to have a very unhappy holidays, I would imagine. But a lot of other teams did the trick, did the job. And, mate, it's not going great. First team, I think, in league history to win or to go unbeaten in their first 10 and then lose their next 3. So, they're making history, the kind of history they're used to making, to be fair. And Arsenal get, I think, a predictable late winner from Kai Havertz. I think everybody saw that coming. It's funny because when we did the post-Newcastle pod, I think there was a big schism in the fan base in terms of some people taking out the frustration on the PGMOL, some people frustrated with our lack of attacking output. And I remember very clearly on the post-Newcastle pod, I said, you look at the fixtures, you look at the way we're playing, the way we're controlling games, we're going to be top by December. I felt really confident in that, and that is where we find ourselves, an excellent position to be in going into a very busy period. This was the first 10 games in 36 days that we just got behind us, so strap in, everybody. If you celebrated a long holiday weekend, if you were celebrating Thanksgiving holiday weekend, I hope you had a great one. If you weren't, there are plenty of holiday weekends ahead. Our elves on the shelf showed up today, so a very merry and festive time in the Smith household here, and I hope you are looking forward to a good holiday season. So a couple quick things to just let you know. We finished our data review. We did the player data review and the team data review over on Patreon. We're going to probably scout Victor Osimhen because, well, we're credibly linked, as crazy as that sounds. I've seen some links that I consider credible, and it's our job to do the scouting video to ensure that the transfer does not happen. Might try to squeeze in a rewatch, but we play Lens, and if we can get some revenge against Lens on Wednesday, we will finish top of the group with a game to spare, which is just what we had in mind when the group kicked off. And there will obviously be an instant reaction for that on Wednesday. So enough of that. Tim is on Twitter at Stillmanator. Hello, Tim.
Hello there. And today I'm thankful for Kai Havertz.
I am as well thankful for Kai Havertz, the massive flop who now has more goals than many of the other players who were signed in the same summer window. So kudos to him. Came good at the right time. And just like we said with the penalty, will now go on to surely have changed his season for the better and kicked off a wave of goal scoring for him. And here with me now is Clive. You can find him on Twitter at ClivePC. Hello, Clive.
Hello.
How you doing?
Doing good. Been watching lots of NFL and US sports over the weekend. As it's a holiday weekend. Good. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Ravens find any pickup trucks you want to buy, or any healthcare, any pills you want your doctor to prescribe for you?
No, I don't like
any
the
Budweiser
adverts.
You feel like drinking?
I don't like the adverts, but Rams won, Ravens won, Chiefs won. So yeah, sort of teams I sort of follow a little bit, shall we say, from a distance.
Whenever I'm running low on Ford F-150s or prescription drugs or Budweiser, I turn on the NFL and I get right back on track with all of that stuff. So, okay, we got a lot to cover here. I think, well, let's do it chronologically. Let's start with the lineup. And Clive, this was it, right? The attack, which has not been working, according to everything I hear, and to be fair, quite a bit of data to support that, was finally going to click in this game because we played all the attackers. Except Kai Havertz. And that is an interesting talking point for Kai winning this game. It is an interesting one. We went with Jesus up front, fresh from the Brazil-Argentina game. Martinelli, fresh from the Brazil-Argentina game. Big Gabby as well. Saka, Odegaard returns, and Trossard plays left 8. And I have to admit, when I saw the lineup, there was this little part of me that's like, oh boy, Kai doesn't really get picked at 9, and now Trossard's getting games at left 8 ahead of him. So when we come to the Havertz section, certainly I think a big moment for him. We can discuss how that changes things. But what was your feeling when you looked and saw play all the attackers, all out attack, FIFA style? Were we supposed to score 10 in this game or what?
Well, we've already worked out pre-pod that you two get anxious at the drop of a hat. So, and I may
don't know what you're talking about.
I may be the counterbalance to that, just by naturally. And so Elliot, I think now we must have done over 500 podcasts together. And for about 200 of them, I've been asking for a left 8 pod. Like, what does that actually look like? Because I don't think we all agree what that looks like. And the next pod I'm after is, when you say attack clicking, what do you mean? What do you mean? And I think that is a discussion, because it's a benchmark from where we look at the team. And everything's changed. And what's changed is the respect by which we are given these days have changed the game. And so our attack can no longer look the same, because the teams we are playing against have decided we're quite good now. It's a big enough sample size, and they're going to hide behind the wardrobe, literally, and stand still and let us go in certain places, and then build a moat to stop us getting back into the areas we want to get, and make it very, very difficult. And so the attack, in my opinion, can't click as it did last year, because the scenarios are not the same as last year. The requirements are not the same. If you were playing Arsenal, you don't do what PSV did at home. You don't try and play us and have soft press and leave these big spaces in the middle of the pitch for us to run through. Because if you do, you get whooped 4-0, right? And so what you do is you have tall trees in the middle of your box around zone 14, force people wide, smash people with wide midfielders and fullbacks, so your one-on-one merchants are literally playing against 2 or 3. And then you make sure that Arsenal are not great in the air in the middle of the box, so you make it difficult for them. Sometimes you even let them cross it, so you can get the ball into your goalkeeper's hands, and then you can break on them. And that's another tactic that teams use. And so it's not, I know I've been saying this for a while, and I've been trying to say it online, but it's not going to be the same. And the most important thing is that we have the tools in our team to go with the evolution of the analysts who've been watching us, and then find another way. And this is why I think this game was really impressive, because a player that we brought in for just this scenario helped us win the game. And I saw differences to how our wide men played to be providers rather than one-on-one merchants, which I thought was really, really cute. And again, people are judging those wingers based on last year's wing play, not on what we asked them to do in this game, which was cross from inverted positions, nice little diagonals, etc. So a really positive day for the evolution of the team. But still, people are waiting for us to click, when, in my opinion, I don't think that's on offer at the moment.
Yeah, and I want to read something Bukayo Saka said after the match. So I feel like a lot of games I'm facing a double team with 2 guys on me, and it's the same for Gabby Martinelli. It's happening every game. I keep watching all my games back, trying to find a solution, what I can do better. And, there is just a difference in the way people are defending us this season. There is a difference in the way we want to try to break that down. I do think Jesus being back will help a bit. There's integration of new pieces, but there is just the fact that people understand what we're going to try to do a little more, which means they get to do tactics too. And those tactics are having an impact, but the impact that they are having as well by trying to shut us down. Look at what they're creating. Nothing. And so while I've always been clear, I don't think the right way to try to win a game is to try to win everything 1-0. I do think that what teams have done to try to slow us down has completely neutered their own attacks. Brentford would have created absolutely nothing yesterday were it not for a pretty major error, or a couple of errors that we will come on to in a moment. Tim, I actually saw this as a game of 4 quarters, which is relevant given that Clive was taking in some of the 4-quarter oriented American sport over the weekend. In that there was a first quarter where I think we struggled to come to grips with it. We were a little sloppy in possession. We didn't really get control of it. There was a second quarter where I think not only did we have a lot of possession and push them back, but we were prying them apart a little bit, and we actually got that goal that was ruled out rightly, let's be fair, rightly by an offside. Very, very close. But if we're going to take the offside in the United game, we got to take the offside here. That's how it works. And then the third quarter where we came out after halftime, and I think we just did not have the intensity that we needed, or maybe you could say Brentford got some juice back in their legs, right? A little bit of energy back in their legs, haven't been running around for the first half, and we did very little. And then a fourth quarter where I think we were pushing them back and again, battering them quite a bit. So we finished both halves quite strong. And I think in both of those periods, just about deserved goals. Do you see it similarly? And I'm curious if you want to diagnose maybe the first and second quarters, what it is that made it hard for us to really create a whole lot during those periods.
Yeah, sure. I think that is a good summation of it. I think this is a game that feels very different when you watch it back, and you take that anxiety of
Jeopardy.
and needing the goal. I said this on the instant reaction. I always felt pretty confident we were going to get that goal. I really felt we were kind of prying at them. We made the right substitutions. I think. Let's take this two ways. First of all, let's do the fun bit and diagnose and turn it into transfers. This game really convinced me of my position that in the forward area we need another wide player and not more than another centre forward, because Kai Havertz comes on and does the centre forward thing, right? He comes on and scores a cross from a header. Like, if Ivan Toney had done that for us, everyone would be going, what a brilliant spend of money, we've got the plan B. Listen, I know Kai Havertz only done it once, but you know what I mean? Like, I think we've got that there. I think this is a game where we really could have done with being able to introduce a different threat, kind of for the last 20, 30 minutes when perhaps it's not quite going for Martinelli more than Saka, because Saka creates the goal, and the goal that's disallowed he creates as well. That's his cross as well. So, it didn't feel like an amazing Saka game, but essentially Arsenal score twice, technically, and he creates both of them. So that kind of tells you something. And for me, being able to change gears in those wide positions when teams do this, and, Brentford were very, very narrow, very much funneling us out wide, very narrow 5-3-2 shape. And I do think that perhaps being able to introduce something a little bit different out wide is still a bit of a priority for us. However, I think in this game as well, it was another one similar to other away games we've had this season, maybe similar to Chelsea, but we've sharpened up here where it just took a little while to understand what the game was giving us and what Brentford were giving us. And what they were giving us were those crosses from the corner of the area. And so Arsenal made those substitutions that were like, okay, if that's what we're getting, those are the positions we're getting, let's bring on the players to maximise that. And I urge people to read Adrian Clark's analysis of this on the Arsenal website. He talked about how Arsenal were very often creating 3v2 situations in the area because they were doubling up on Saka and Martinelli. Like, you do that, there's a spare player, right? And that's a big part of the reason I think Trossard played, because Trossard often pushed right up next to Jesus in the box. You see a lot of those crosses, particularly in the kind of first 60 minutes before we brought Nketiah on, and particularly Havertz, it's Trossard who's kind of in there. So I think it just took a little while to understand, okay, that's what they're giving us, so let's go and take it. And, we moved some things around. We moved Trossard out of the area. We kept him on the left because he's really good at that clip cross to the back post. That's more him than Martinelli. And, bringing Havertz in to do that second striker thing, like, we just had to tweak a few things around. I think we knew broadly how Brentford were going to play, but sometimes it just takes a little while to understand what kind of space and what kind of opportunity you're going to get. And we talked after the Chelsea game about how it took far too long to understand that, whereas this time I think we understood it a lot more quickly. And to be fair, we understood it from more of a position of comfort because we were 0-0 instead of 2-0 down. And by the way, how do we score the equaliser against Chelsea? Saka, clip cross to the back post, Trossard puts it in. That's becoming quite a good avenue for us, particularly against teams who are defending deep. So we are finding ways. And I think this time, perhaps we just needed the right players on. And again, just to allude to something I said in the instant reaction, as soon as Nketiah comes on, I know people will have problems with one particular incident where he doesn't pass to Saka. First thing he does is attacks across when he comes on, because Arsenal have 2 or 3 crosses that just drift across and out for a goal kick. Clearly he came on, because he's more likely to attack those than perhaps Jesus. And first thing he does is goes and attacks one and doesn't win it, but gets a corner. And that's what Arsenal were doing, I think. I think it just took them a little while to understand that. And I think that's fair enough.
Yeah, and one thing that I do think is fair, Clive, if I had frustration in this game, and I did at times, I still think there is a willingness, too much of a willingness, to just go around the horseshoe, to just go around the houses. I do think that someone has to step up and be willing to try to play in the dangerous run in behind, or try to connect to the middle players, in the attacking line. And you could say, oh, well, it's our design. It's actually the tactic, because we don't want to give things away. We don't want to lose the ball in that area. Well, if that's the tactic, then I have issues with the tactic, because I think at some point you can't just keep going around. And like, Zinchenko actually in this game had a brilliant game, rated really highly in this game. But one of the reasons is, in a very interesting switch from tradition, Saliba was not our top passer. Zinchenko was, and then Rice. And they were really doing our final third entries and our progressive passes and things like that. And Zinchenko created a lot of XA, expected assists, expected assisted goals. He had a lot of final third entries. Not what you expect from your fullback, although we know at this point he's not really playing fullback. But, I look at an Odegaard, for example, or a Trossard for that matter, whoever it is, and I say someone has to be willing to stop the pattern of just going out to Saka, back to Odegaard, back to Rice, or Saliba, or whoever it is, and play that more hurtful, incisive pass. And so, do you think there's instead of saying, do you think there's an issue there, what do you think of that pattern that develops, especially in those first and third quarters that I referenced, where I do think we are a little too comfortable taking 4 touches, passing it to the guy next to us. They take 4 touches and do the same thing, and it all gets a little bit bogged down and monotonous.
Yeah, I think this game, the weekend, was a game for people like us that have been waiting for Kai Havertz to score that goal, because we scouted him. So all the Twitter experts, myself included, we're having the "I told you so" moment, right? Quietly,
back post cross.
Yeah, back post cross. That's what we thought we had. And there is one line in Adrian's piece, Tim, where he said that's only Kai Havertz's third header on goal. Now that is a failing as far as I'm concerned. That's on us, because we have the player. We know what he can do. We know what we bought him for. That's on us. And so I in this game, it's very difficult. We've won the game, right? If it's 0-0, we were having a different conversation about events in the game that we weren't happy with. But what I will say is I thought we played the game correctly. If you want to talk Saliba, Elliot, Saliba post-international break never had the same rhythm. Never quite had the same rhythm. He gets through it, but he never had the same rhythm. They were so deep, he didn't need to have the ball at his feet. The guys in front could have it. And they were getting bored. They were coming to our screen, or just outside the area at some points in that game. They were that bored. They had no attacking threat. So they were bored players, and so Zinchenko and Rice could sit as all like you have a box at the back, but the two in front were just making sure our centre backs didn't have the ball. And so Rice and Zinchenko were doing it, and they had top statistical games, and they were the two best players on the pitch because they had most of the ball. I look at the crossing statistics, and Saka, Martinelli 6 each, Trossard 7. Just what I want. And I'm sure I haven't seen Scott's information yet, but I want to see the locations from where they're doing it from. And I'm hoping it's lane 4 inside, diagonals to the back post. That is the way to beat the deep blocks. That is the way. And I thought we did it really, really well. And it's frustrating because it got to the last minute. And it's frustrating when you don't see their goalkeeper flying around the net. But they defended pretty well. They competed. Set pieces were really deliberate. They headed their first contact out all the time. And they really went for it. And then what they also did, Elliot, is when we had the ball at the back on occasions, they then pressed very, very high into our goalkeeper and then made it a completely different game and then caught us out and nearly got their clutch moment, shall we say, to allow them to then hold on to a 1-0 with that same defensive system. So it's difficult. I didn't sense in this game the same anguish I felt, as Tim's already mentioned, the Chelsea game, where I didn't think we recognised the game on offer. I really didn't. I was quite vociferous about it. In this game, I think it was the most clearest tactical game to work out. And we fortunately had the tools and the approach to fix it. And if anything, there's a couple of themes coming out of this game. One is Saka's ability to deliver under pressure is just astounding. And two is the interconnectivity amongst the players, which I think reached almost like a new level, and I think once you've got that and people prepared to look after each other and support each other, and we're sort of finding solutions on the pitch, we're on the way to something, mate. We're on the way to something.
Yeah. Tim, I'm just going to ask you the same question quick, because I do think it's worth getting your take on it as well. Bothered by the lateral passing, the horseshoe, when it settles in? I still think, to all of Clive's good points there, I still think it's something that is taking up too many chunks of games in terms of our willingness to do it. And again, I'm curious if you have a thought on the people that say, well, there's an intentionality about that because it leaves us less exposed and lets us control games, and whether we have the balance there, right?
Yeah. So the kind of thought experiment I did with myself this morning when I was having my Monday morning swim was, can Arsenal win the league without improving their attack? If we attack like this, particularly away from home all season, can we win the league? And I kind of think the answer is no.
I agree with you.
I think it does have to improve. That's not to say I don't think it will, or I think it can't, or etc., etc. But if it stays like this the whole season, just because, like, maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago, sorry, there's someone at the door. 10, 15,
I can
20
hear that.
Yeah.
Tell them
like maybe 10, 15 years ago, that would have won the league. It just doesn't now because you need 90 points and the standards are so high. So I do think it has. I do think the formula needs finessing a bit. And that's the fascinating question for the next 2/3 of the season. Can we get that attack up a bit, but keep the defensive solidity that we have? Because that's really pleasing. And I think it's actually really, really, because we're talking so much about the attack, we're underestimating the enormous improvement in us off the ball. A lot of that's Declan Rice, but I don't think all of it's Declan Rice. And actually that was a priority, and we have kind of sorted it. It just needs, I think, a slight dial up on the other side. Not a lot. Finding Kai Havertz will do it, in my opinion, for example.
And the only thing I'd tweak from what you said is, you said the system needs a little tweak, or something in our tactics need a little tweak to get the attack firing. I don't know if it's that, or if it's players just need to go up that one little, like, Odegaard can be better than this. We're not seeing the best Odegaard. Jesus has just come in. Left 8 is still a rotating carousel of players that no one has taken. I love Tomiyasu. I think having a specialist defender in your team who can play left back, right back, and both center back positions and be a shutdown defender is among the most valuable things you can have. But go watch this game again. For large portions of the game, Tomiyasu clearly wants to keep it safe when the ball gets to his feet. There'd be little runs. He could make that sort of diagonal ball for the player, making a little, like, Jesus loves those little diagonals. That's not his ball. He doesn't have that ball, so he keeps it safe. And so to me, I don't even know if it's a system tweak. Clive, I think it is just players elevating a little bit, and being willing to take on the responsibility to break down these low blocks. They're not easy to break down. That's why teams do it. And Brentford's, if we had drawn this game, there'd be a lot of people saying a draw away at Brentford, having not conceded a goal, is a good result. We didn't do that. We won. So, I think they've lost. What's the stat? They've lost something like 3 home games in the last calendar year, and they're all to us. It's something like that.
3 in 23 home games, and 2 of them have been to us. So,
yeah,
my view is, I think we're conflating a couple of things. We'd all like to see a little bit more attacking play, because you know what, it makes us happy. Seeing the PSV game, I loved it. I absolutely loved it. Seeing Jesus score against Manchester United last minute, we all loved that, didn't we? Went off into the moonlight. Beautiful night, beautiful day. But we talk about this game. And that has got to be the lowest block I've seen since Jose Mourinho took his Inter Milan team to Barcelona. That is the lowest of low blocks. It is incredible where they were. So for this game, I give them a slight bit of a pass. For this game, not for other games where I felt we have been we've moved the emphasis of our game back towards our goalkeeper to try to stretch the pitch out. We tried to, and I haven't liked that. I haven't liked it because I think we've created problems for ourselves. We can see that against Spurs going backwards. Did we need to? We can see it against Fulham going backwards. Did we need to? Could we play a bit more forward? But that was those games. That wasn't this game. This game was a very organised team that play a 5-3-2, that know what they're doing at home. They know how to block people, and they're very organised at doing it. And they wait for a mistake, and they nearly got two. I nearly won the game. So for this game, I'm all right. Your point about Odegaard, let's go through a couple. We had 3 Gabriels on the plane. 2 of them were average, and 1 I thought was excellent at the back. Right? So on the same plane, but 1 recovered better, in my opinion. But we wanted more from the attackers because it was an attacker's game. So then we could judge them on it. Odegaard's first game back, we're looking at him because we know he rules the show attack-wise. So our eyes are on him acutely. I thought he was just okay. But nothing more than that. Not the guy we're used to seeing. Saka was just okay until the pressure moments came and he executes.
Yep.
I thought Trossard was fine, and so it's just, I'm trying to keep it to this game, Elliot. Although I agree with your overall point, we all want the attack to get better. We all want to tweak it, but I think it's a byproduct that we're really improving. We are really improving as a team, and teams, unlike in Europe, are respecting us a lot in the Premier League, and they are just not even playing us anymore. Bring it on. Let someone play us and see what happens. But at the moment, I find it frustrating that teams are hardly trying, to play us. And that tells us maybe where we are.
Can
please?
I just wanted to add as well. So I haven't had a chance to watch Match of the Day yet, and because one of the things I'm really interested, I think Clive's exactly right that in isolation, Brentford are incredibly difficult to play. They played Liverpool the other week, right? And Klopp said, "I could not respect the way they play anymore." He said they're one of the worst teams to play, which he meant as a compliment. Kind of, he said every time you play Brentford, and not just at home, they're tricky away as well, as we found last season. So there is that element to it. This would have been one time I'd have been really interested in the external view on this, but because, I haven't seen Match of the Day yet, for example, because it's the same weekend as Liverpool City, that's consumed a lot of the external discourse. And the sense I'm getting from this is people have just gone, Arsenal have won 1-0 away from home again, which I don't say pejoratively. I think that's a compliment to us. On one, because 3 years ago we win this game 1-0 away from home, everyone's going, oh, Arsenal have found something new here. Now it feels a bit routine, but because sometimes that's a really good view to get, because if Man City do this and Erling Haaland scores in the 89th minute, what do we think? We think, City always do this, that's Man City, they always find a way. Or if Salah scores in the 89th minute and Liverpool win 1-0, we go, Liverpool, they always do that, don't they? But when it's your own team, obviously you're hypercritical. So I'd be really interested to see, but haven't seen, what do other people outside the club think of this? Do they think, that's just Arsenal, they were always going to win? Or do they think that there's something there?
Yeah, actually, can I just say one thing on that? Only because Tim's asked a question. Arsenal were on Match of the Day, and we were actually the last game on Match of the Day. And basically, mate, it was a 20-second analysis of the game. So I'm not saying that covers what everyone thinks.
We're going to beat that by a bit.
Yeah, I listened to the IR that you guys did, and I was halfway through, and you mentioned the word meh about 4 or 5 times. And I'm thinking, I didn't have that feeling. I had a feeling that this was a real step in our development, because we showed we can beat these low blocks. And if we show we can beat these low blocks, what are teams going to do to react to that now? Next time Kai Havertz is picked, you know what they're going to do? They're going to try to go and engage with us higher up into midfield and put our midfielders under pressure. If we get out of that, then we are back to last year's clicking. Because we're going to see white shorts running forward at pace in mini transitions, which we are just not on offer. So this is an important step that we keep crossing diagonally, not the Cedric cross. I'm talking diagonally. Keep crossing into danger areas, the one that Eddie nearly got on the end of, etc. Keep doing that until teams say we can't stay here, it's too stressful, we need to come out of this box. Come out of the box, make the pitch bigger, and let's go. Shall we? Let's go. But we need to go through this bit first before we get there.
Yeah, and look, there's a tendency sometimes, especially when things are going good, to just ignore the data that isn't good or ignore the things that aren't good because you don't want to be dragged down. And I get that, but I'm going to invoke something here, and please understand I am not calling them similar. Please know I'm not calling them similar. When we went on the long unbeaten run under Emery, there was clear data showing we weren't playing in a way that was consistent and going to deliver wins. And people did not want to hear it because why would you want to? We're winning. Like, let's enjoy it. And I do get there's a balance there, not looking under the rug every time you win to see what dangers lie ahead. Enjoy the win, which, by the way, we're going to get to enjoying the win in a minute. But like, I also think there is most of the data right now, I want to be clear, says we're an amazingly good team. The way we control the ball, the way we control the territory, our defense is elite. If you look at any charts that show where you are, we're in that upper right quadrant where you want to be. But we are 11th in non-penalty expected goals. Does that mean we're bad? Of course it doesn't. But to Tim's point, I don't think if we finish the season 11th in non-penalty expected goals, we will finish the season as champions. That's my hypothesis. So it's not me saying we're bad and why are we bad? It's me saying, is there a little more we can get out of that? So we go from 11th to even 5th, even 6th, a little more, because you combine that with the control that we have. And then I think you have a title winning recipe. And I have always said that I think it will be about personnel more than system. I think it will be Jesus playing more games and Odegaard coming back to the fore. And you heard Bukayo Saka. He said, me and Gabby are facing more double teams. I watch every game, the video of every game, to try to see how I can do things differently. Saka delivers in the key moment, though, and that's why we're sitting here celebrating 3 points instead of talking about a 0-0 where we'd be going, another good defending game, but is the attack a problem? It's less of a problem when you win 1-0 than when you draw 0-0. So, look, it almost wasn't a 0-0, though, and we do have to get to one of the more difficult topics of the podcast. And, like, Clive, I listened back to the audio and I actually reposted it on Twitter because it's exactly what we talked about. When we did the pod on Friday, we did a segment on Ramsdale. And if you remember, Clive, I said about Ramsdale, I said, this feels like a really bad situation to me because he's got one game. He's been sitting there wondering what happened to his job, and he's got one game where every single thing he does is going to be scrutinized. He's going to feel this immense pressure to try to win his job back with a single performance. Hell, the pre-match press conference, someone even said, if he saves a couple penalties and has an amazing game, will he get his job back? And Mikel was like, well, I hope he doesn't have to save a couple penalties. It is an unsustainable way to approach getting a start as a goalkeeper. I have to prove my value in this one performance. And I think you could see clearly in the way he started in this game that it was in his head, that he wasn't just playing his game, it was in his head. And I'm curious what you make of the errors. And obviously, the way I described the one that led to the near goal where Declan Rice does so well. Watch the video back, the way he runs straight to the goal line to clear that ball is brilliant. But it just looked like brain lock. It's just, instead of just doing what came natural, he was thinking through what he's supposed to do. His brain locked up. He loses the ball. He obviously has the throw that goes sort of right into the ground. What do you think of what I'm going to say are uncharacteristic errors? I mean, he's made errors before, but this looked like a player who was overthinking it,
Yeah, it looks like a player that lacked game time. I think his last league game was in late September, which
didn't know.
Really,
couldn't.
Yeah,
did he play in September?
Late September.
I would have thought it was late August because he lost the job after the first international break.
Well, someone was going to correct us. Tim will correct me as I'm talking.
He played a League Cup tie in September.
His last game was in September. Let's just do that, right? And so I don't know anybody that without practice that goes out there and plays brilliantly. Look at Jorginho stepped on the ball. He hasn't given the ball away since against Spurs. Yeah, it's the way it is. So he looked a little bit rusty. The pass, it's one of those classic moments, right? Ball comes to your feet. You look down for your first touch. And you think, okay, there's my pass. And you look up and the pass is gone. The pictures change and they're rushing you. And he froze on his next action and then he gave the ball away. Trust me, anyone who's played out there knows what I'm talking about. When the picture changes on you very, very quickly. And on the second, and Ramsdale is a fantastic thrower of the ball. It looks as though he changed his mind and threw the ball down. Again, when they train and they have the 8v8 goals and they're all close together, the stuff we see on the inside training videos, they can practice their shot stopping all day long. What you can't practice is the pace of the game, the pace of the movement, the pace of aggressive forwards coming at you, and distances. That's what you miss very, very quickly. Although he got that real quick. And I said this yesterday, and I'll say it again, and I heard James say the similar thing as well. mate, after that bad pass, my heart was breaking for him. I'm thinking, oh no, we're losing the guy, because he's an emotional guy. We can all see it. Emotional both ways. When he's happy, we can't miss it. When he's sad, you can't miss it. I said, no, don't show people. Don't
He put his head in his
yourself this
hands.
open. Don't make yourself this open. You can't be this vulnerable. You're an elite goalkeeper. In my opinion, should be the England goalkeeper. If it wasn't for this situation, he would be the England goalkeeper. And he should be in my mind, but Southgate, let's not go there, right? Another podcast. However, after he made that passing out, the next pass was an absolute perfection pass. I would not have played that pass into midfield on the ground. No way. I'd have booted it long to the left winger and say, fight for that. Up in the air. Take as few risks as possible. And that showed me the exact reasons why Arsenal Football Club bought this guy. I don't like talk about this situation with goalkeeper because I said to you before, Elliot, I am not objective. What the manager told me at the start when we got the two keepers in, that hasn't played out as I expected. I thought there was an opportunity to be innovative with the goalkeeping position. It hasn't happened. And we've exposed somebody that was at the top of his game, the PFA goalkeeper of the year. We seem to have exposed cracks in him. However, those cracks did close in the second half. And maybe we have to take the drama out as a group of fans and say, we have two good goalkeepers. These are first world problems. Two really good goalkeepers. One of them can't nudge the other one out at the moment. But let's not get over it. Let's just get over it. The way we know our manager sees goalkeepers as footballers. So he don't care. One in, one out. Simple as that. The rest of the world sees goalkeepers as a special species. Every time you say that to him, he goes the other way. And he says, nah. My players were great. He sees them as players. He sees them as players, and you have to fight. Just like Zinchenko has. Just like Tomiyasu has. Just like Havertz has. He wants you to fight. And your reaction is what he's watching, not your actions. It's your reaction to adversity. And he must not show any weakness. And I was so pleased he ended that game with a puff cheeks relief look on his face when the final whistle went, because he knew he'd done a job. He hadn't let his team down. He knew he was rusty, probably not prepared well, and he got through it. And I would love to see him play on Wednesday again and follow that up with a sharper game. Probably won't happen. Not sure what's going to happen with him, Elliot. I'm not the best at this because I like the guy. I like them both, and I want him to succeed. So I'm not being objective. I'm just saying what I see, really, and hope he can just get through it and have either a very good Arsenal career or a very good career somewhere else.
Yeah, I mean, look, football isn't just about the numbers on a spreadsheet or the score at the end of the game. It's about your passion, what you care about. I mean, if that wasn't the case, you could switch allegiances and root for the team that was playing the best. You can't do that. Should we swap Bukayo Saka for Mohamed Salah? Well, yeah, Salah's better than Saka right now. Be a stupid thing to do because it would make everybody miserable, right? I mean, not to mention the age curve thing and all that, don't get me started. But my point is, have your favorites. Like who you like. You should probably still do clear-headed analysis, obviously, and I think we try to do that, but you should like who you like. And by the way, look what it meant to the team for Ramsdale. When he claims that cross late in the game, 3 defenders come down and pat him on the back emphatically for claiming a cross. And then at full time, they all go to him. It wasn't a good game. I mean, he finished the game strong. Passed at 53%. Passed his long passes at 34%. Claimed 14% of his crosses. It's not the game you would have dreamed of having. But to Clive's point, let's be honest, this isn't a competition. Ramsdale was not given the chance to compete for this job. He lost it at the international break. His last league game was September 3rd. He did play both of our League Cup ties, and I think it's worth saying maybe a little iffy against West Ham. But the point is, we do like Ramsdale. He was a big part of the beautiful journey we went on together last season. And the club has opted to upgrade on him, or at least they feel they've done that. And that's the decision that's been taken. And so I think there's a lot of hurt feelings about that. Mikel was asked, and I want to get your take on all of this, Tim, but so interesting. He was asked about Ramsdale and wouldn't mention him by name, would not answer it. I think he's just sick of this conversation on Ramsdale's performance. He said, this is football. I'm so happy with the team, the way the team performed. We kept a clean sheet and we move on. I'm so happy. But he was asked on the players congratulating Ramsdale at the final whistle, and he said, it's a joy as a manager to watch this reaction. You've got the players looking out for each other, encouraging each other, showing love to each other. It doesn't get any better than that. Today is my 200th game, and when I see a team that behaves between them like that, and I see the staff smiles, I'm so happy, and I couldn't be prouder and more grateful for everybody that works for us every single day to make my job so enjoyable. He didn't seem to want to be drawn into the Ramsdale thing specifically, but I do think that reaction, I have to admit, there was a part of me that was like, is that the players knowing it's probably his last one? January's on the horizon. Could something happen there? I think it's unlikely, but it just felt familiar to like the way Leno was congratulated in his last start. So what did you think of this? I loved the reaction of the team though. And I loved that he did get the clean sheet and he did get the win despite obviously the rocky moments in the first half.
Yeah, sure. I think Clive's covered like the mistakes well. They come early in the game when he's cold, and perhaps if he'd got England versus Macedonia under his belt, I'm still not sure those happen. And also we're probably asking him to do stuff he's not comfortable to do. In the second half, there'd certainly seemed to be a decision to go long more often. I think that's because Arsenal looked a bit more dangerous, actually counter-pressing Brentford and getting them out of their defensive shape and getting those centre-backs to leave their penalty area to come and attack the ball, and Arsenal trying to pick up the bits and pieces, and he was more comfortable with that. We're seeing this pattern with Raya as well, where he makes mistakes early in games but then settles. So I think there's a lot of that behind it. It's interesting you talk about like the reaction to Ramsdale. Had something very, very similar at the women's game yesterday. Beth Mead scored her first goal since coming back from injury. Jonas Eidevall was asked about, the emotion of that, and he said, for me, it's what was really great was to see how happy all the other players were. Very, very similar answer, and that's a coach's answer, isn't it? It's not just that she was happy; it's that everyone went over to her and was happy for her, and that shows you've got a tight knit group. And I think that very much tells you a story here. As for his comments afterwards, I do get it. He's clearly sick of the conversation and he doesn't want to be drawn into it and blah blah blah. But at the same time, like, the conversation is kind of his fault because of, to Clive's point, what he said. It's not just the decision, but what he said wasn't really accurate, and that's created a lot of the conversation. So it is kind of his fault that it's been. It would have been a big conversation anyway, but that it's been even bigger. But also, when you look at, like, I can't help but look at Havertz, right? What does Arteta do at the final whistle? And it's fine. Like, Ramsdale and Havertz are absolutely the two people to give their flowers at the final whistle, and that's certainly what the travelling fans did as well. But Arteta like runs over to Havertz. He's pointing at him. He really, really bigs him up post match. All absolutely fine. Like, of course you should be doing that. So it does seem to be a bit of a weird contrast to not want to do that for Ramsdale as well. I accept he made some mistakes and you can't exactly say, I think he performed brilliantly. But even something like, he was a bit cold, difficult start for him, but he really grew into it. I've got a real problem here. I've got two big, like, really good goalkeepers. That kind of stuff. I don't really understand why that, even just like fairly platitudinous kind of, we got two great goalkeepers here. Raya wasn't available and we still come here and keep a clean sheet, and Ramsdale kept a clean sheet here 6 weeks ago as well. Like, just that stuff, it does seem a bit weird to not want to engage with that, and it does kind of suggest, and this is contrary to something I've suggested, because I've said a lot over the last few weeks, I don't think Arteta really cares what people are talking about, but this kind of suggests he does, and this feels to me like a media answer and not a team answer. This is him trying to kill a conversation when he shouldn't care about the conversation. It should be about my team. And even if people interpret those answers, maybe Ramsdale's got a chance, when he probably hasn't, like, that should be kind of fine. Like, the player should come kind of first. And like you said, you can see how delighted the players are for him as well. So it does seem a bit odd to me to be cold on Ramsdale, particularly when he's gone so big on Havertz.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point. Clive, you have anything you want to say on that before we move on?
I think amateur psychologists here, and it's very difficult for us, but you kind of go what you see and feel. And I think when he spoke about Havertz, it's not just how ebullient he was. Is that he spoke about how he's reacted to adversity. And I think he's talking to people when he says that. He's saying, yeah, you will have adversity in your life. How are you going to react? And Havertz was obviously well liked within the club. Oh, I think all the players, Ramsdale's well liked. You can see that. But he had some low moments, man, really low moments. And the players got around him, and they really did feel pleased for him. And the interviews thereafter have stated that. I keep saying this, but in elite sport, it is, you will have adversity. You can have one bad game, and your Instagram is full of stuff we can't even want to imagine, right? You will have adversity, so you just have to be able to overcome it. My worry with Ramsdale is he's a really nice, sensitive human being, and I just want to see him show that courageous side that he showed in the second half of this game, because I think that's what the manager wants to see. Whether we believe he has a future at the club or not, I'm not. I think we can read the future maybe, potentially, but we don't know. But what I do know is if you don't react well, it's not going to go well for you. And I do think interviews and emotions and interviews of his Ramsdale's dad, mate, just be quiet. Just play football, play really, really well, and see what happens. And I hope he gets through it, but I'm a bit concerned for him, if I'm honest.
Look, I mean, football, elite sport is brutal. It's brutal. And the brutality mostly exists in the 6 inches between your ears. We've seen a Liverpool goalkeeper go to pieces on the biggest stage and essentially never recover, right? I'm not saying that happened to Ramsdale here, but I'm saying, like, unfortunately, resiliency is not reality. Resiliency is one of the key qualities of an elite athlete. The best strikers, if you look at the big chances missed table every season, the top of it is like Erling Haaland, Mohamed Salah. They get so many chances. It turns out they miss a ton of them. But the reason they're so good is that last miss isn't in their mind. Cristiano Ronaldo, say whatever you want about that guy. He can embarrass himself with a terrible free kick that goes into Rosette. He's going to do the same damn thing the next free kick because he's arrogant. But unfortunately, arrogance is a quality that can work for you in elite sport. And to the point about Ramsdale, like, I think he's been put in an impossible position here. I don't think you can come in one league game because the starting keeper isn't allowed to play and you've got to prove your worth. And to your point about not playing for England, I just think comes in cold. The best part of this is we're able to sit here and congratulate him on a clean sheet and a win, and he gets that moment with his players, his teammates. And yeah, maybe the manager could have name checked him a little bit and said something more along the lines of, I'm so happy for Aaron. Obviously, it was a rocky start. He hasn't played in a while. That's been, my choice, but he recovered well and helped us to this victory. Could have said that, didn't say that. You can read into it or not, but I think we should move on and get to how we did wind up winning the game. Obviously, I think it's easy to say unquestioned star signing of the summer, Kai Havertz. So we'll get to that. But, one of the things that you need to be an elite athlete is you need to be mentally strong. You also need to be physically strong. And that means you need to put the best things into your body. And the best things you can put in your body include AG1. So I want to tell you about AG1, something that I brought into my life. And I'll tell you why. Very simple. So I had a friend. He was a doctor. He is still a doctor, as it turns out. And I saw it. He was taking it. He's like, yeah, I love it. It works for me. You should give it a try. So I gave it a try. It was the first time I'd heard about it, and I was taking it for gut health. I've had some gut issues, just not been particularly happy with how I was feeling that way. And I took it for gut health, put it in water in the morning, drink it down, really good. One thing I noticed is actually it helped me get off coffee a bit, drinking less coffee, which I think makes me feel a little healthier. It is a few things. It also replaces my multivitamins. So I was taking those gummy vitamins, and anything you read about the gummy vitamins, you actually wind up absorbing very few of the vitamins, and it's a lot of sugar that you don't need. So AG1 is keto friendly, paleo friendly, vegan friendly, dairy free, sugar free. So it's something you can take that is consistent with your dietary lifestyle. It's the best ingredients. It raises the standard of quality for your supplements, and it can help you with that micro habitat there in your gut, but also replacing your multivitamins, helping with energy and recovery and things like that. If a comprehensive solution is what you need from your supplement routine, then try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of their vitamin D supplement and 5 free AG1 travel packs. I can tell you vitamin D, by the way, if you live somewhere like Minnesota, where I live, where it's gray and dark all winter, the vitamin D is something to get into your life. So, 1 year supply of vitamin D and 5 free AG1 travel packs with your first purchase. Go to drinkag1.com/vision. That's drinkag1.com/vision. Check it out. And healthy body also needs a healthy mind. This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp. BetterHelp isn't online therapy. It is just therapy. It is therapy that is affordable. It is therapy that's accessible. It's therapy that doesn't require you to get in a car and drive back from your home to an office, setting aside that time. What if you need someone to watch the kids? With BetterHelp, if you've got a screen, if you've got internet, you can connect to therapy and get the support that you need. And you can even do it camera off if you want. Look, I think it's very simple. Mental health is health. And if you understand that you should work out your body by going to the gym, you understand that you should work out your body by, or make your body fit by putting the best food and nutrition into it or going to a doctor. Mental health should just be part of your routine. I've done therapy. I cannot recommend it highly enough, not just for crisis moments, but for maintenance as well. BetterHelp is a way to do it affordably and accessibly. So so I got to get the old promo code here so we get this right. There we go. Okay. I got it, everybody. We're covered here. So find your bright spot this season with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/vision. Should have known that one. It's pretty easy. BetterHelp.com/vision today to get 10% off your first month. It's BetterHelp.com/vision. Do that now. And I will finish strong by telling you one more thing. This one is the one that I think is number one most requested from listeners in terms of like, hey, what's the promo code? I want to get it. And that's NordVPN. NordVPN is the VPN that I use, and I use it to be able to browse in the regions that I want to browse in. So like if I'm out of the country and I want to be able to watch all the football, because here in the US, I'm able to watch all the football. But when I go over to England, for example, sometimes I can't because that whole 3 p.m. blackout thing, which makes total sense. So I can VPN back to the US and watch all the games. Or sometimes I want to watch Match of the Day when they've given us a whopping 30 seconds of coverage. I can VPN over there, get my BBC account and watch Match of the Day. It's also great for threat protection and things like that. Keep all the spyware and junkware and malware off the computer before it even gets on there. There's an app, so you can just put it on your Mac or your PC or your phone and click the app, click where you want to browse, and you're doing it. So let me get to the important information. They are giving you, I think, a pretty unbelievable deal here, actually. It is 4 bonus months. So you get a huge discount off your NordVPN plan and 4 bonus months completely risk-free with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Go to nordvpn.com/ArsenalVision, nordvpn.com/ArsenalVision. That's nordvpn.com/ArsenalVision to get your 4 bonus months, 30-day risk-free and huge discount. Do it now, Clive. Is that enough of that?
Indeed.
Even I'm sick of doing that at this point. So I can't imagine how you, dear listener, are feeling, but I will tell you the ad-free episodes are available on Patreon, he says, promoting another product. Okay. Well, Tim, the subs. So we played with our food a bit. We defended well. By the way, if you want to hear a really fun stat, William Saliba now has made 40 appearances for Arsenal, 30 wins, just the 4 losses. He is a really special player, and I am really happy we have him. I'm really happy we have Declan Rice, obviously not just for his goal line clearance. I think he was really important in general in this game and was on the ball a lot more than we're used to seeing. But really, what's interesting in this game, Tim, is that we were doing the crossing thing and the back post crossing thing, and actually a lot of chances did come from it. Martinelli had an early header that he headed over poorly. Jesus' header, I think, is a pretty good header, and it's well saved by Flecken. And then Trossard is obviously just slightly offside. Trossard is a header that he tries to sort of skim off the top of his head over. There were a lot of in front of goal, fairly clear chances from guys making those runs to the back post. Of course, the Trossard goal that's ruled out, and we do get the goal from it. But there's an interesting thing that happened to me when we made some of the subs, and it's particularly the Nketiah sub, okay? That was the moment that I actually ironically thought, the Kai thing is a problem now. Because I was like, he didn't start him at 8. He doesn't really use him at center forward. We need a goal. Who's his first attacking sub going to be? It's going to be Nketiah for Jesus, and that was probably planned, by the way, the Jesus thing, because I don't think they wanted to risk him more than an hour after his first minutes being against Argentina, 96 minutes in Brazil just a few days earlier. But I was like, Tim, I don't know. Trossard starts ahead of him at left 8. We already know that Jorginho and Rice start ahead of him at times. Now he's got a chance to come on to spell Jesus, and it's Nketiah who's in front of him. And the irony of this game is he winds up being a winner. But in that moment, I was thinking, don't like where he is in the pecking order right now. So did you have a similar feeling? What do you think about that substitution? And then the irony, of course, that he does wind up coming on and getting the big moment that I think we've all been waiting for, that back post arrival and the goal to win the game.
Yeah, definitely. And like I said earlier, what's really interesting, and you're right, this is kind of bad for Havertz, is that Trossard started, and initially before the game, I think I read it wrong. I thought Trossard was on for the same reason that Fabio Vieira started at Goodison. At Goodison, it was all about keeping the ball on the floor. Don't smash the ball into their 6'10" centre backs because you're not going to get anywhere. And I thought that's why Trossard was starting in the left 8 here. I thought, okay, Fabio Vieira's not available. This is a similar deal. We want to keep the ball on the floor. We don't want Havertz on the pitch because we don't want the temptation to go long or to go high, rather. And actually, I do think that certainly pre this game, this is bad for Havertz. What Trossard was really doing was playing as that second striker, was being that. And again, Adrian Clark highlights this in the piece he wrote. Lots of 3v2s in the penalty area. So lots of talk about Saka and Martinelli being doubled up on. You know, that creates a space elsewhere, right? And you're right, Zinchenko in the interior, he was popping up there a lot and dinking that cross to the back post. That's where Arsenal were finding their spare players. Zinchenko's pretty much always the spare player. He was arriving in that kind of half space, dinked to the back post, and Trossard was always in the box. And look, Trossard, said this about him a few times in recent weeks. Look at the goals he's scoring. They're for me, they're potentially creating redundancy for Nketiah because he's scoring some goals that you'd expect Nketiah to score, like scrappy back post headers, like tap-ins and all of that. And here, that's the goal he scores in this game as well. You know, following not just a scrappy goal, but following in a rebound. They're very number 9 goals for a guy that we don't consider as a kind of 9. And here it was clear he was there to be that like second 9 that Arsenal were going to produce their superiority inside the penalty area. That's where they were looking at it. They were looking at it. We're going to get 70 yards of this pitch probably to ourselves, and it's all going to be scrunched up outside the box. So where do we find the spare man? And the spare man was in the box. So I think it is damning for Havertz, given that, assuming my reader's right, was the tactic. Because that kind of seems set up for him, doesn't it? Like to go and be that second striker. And of course he comes on and he does that and he scores the winner. And maybe we should have done that earlier. And it comes from another 3v2. You look at it, Saka clips the ball to the back post. Havertz is not the only player there. He's not the only player in a yellow shirt there. There's 3 of them in a bunch. And there's 2 Brentford defenders marking them. And the reason for that is because they kept doubling up on Saka and Martinelli. So it was really interesting, Arsenal finding the superiority inside the penalty area. And I do think with the subs as well, I think that's why it's a good decision to keep Trossard on, because he is more likely to play that. Like we took him out of the box and we said, actually, you're going to clip that cross probably better than Martinelli, because that's more you than it is Martinelli. And so, you know, Trossard went and played another role which actually suited him in this game. Like this was a very Trossard game, actually. It's just a case of, was it a Trossard 9 game? Was it a Trossard 8 game? Was it a Trossard left wing game? We kind of saw all of those things. But I do think you're right to say that initially, it's not great for Havertz that he wasn't considered for that role from the start. The question now, and this is the same for all squad players, wherever they are in the reckoning, if you come on and give a good performance, what that usually gives you is like, does that raise your status? So Havertz comes on in the 77th minute here, something like that. At the very least, next time, is he on before Nketiah next time at the very least? Or does he start ahead of Trossard in the position we kind of bought him for, which is where you'd want him to be, really? But like all squad players, when they do this, they do that, you know, can you get on the bench? Right, you're on the bench, you're not the guy left out. Can you get on? Right, you're on for 10 minutes. Can you get yourself 20 minutes? Can you get yourself 30? And you build slowly. And Havertz had gone right down to, you're the second guy off the bench in a game where our actual tactic is to put balls into the penalty area. That's not great for him. But hopefully, I mean, I say like this really should cause, this really should be like, well, the next time we have to do that, of course we're going to start Havertz.
Yep.
And then he builds from there. And then we don't have this conversation where is it a Havertz game where no one says, is this a Saka game today? Is this a Declan Rice game? Like every day is
They're
Saka
all their
day.
games.
Yeah, every day is Saliba day, and so that's what Havertz has to build from here. But you're right, like this kind of was a Havertz day, and we left it quite a long time to go for him, and that he's got to build. He's building from a low base though at this point, so maybe we've gone past the immediate. This guy cost £65 million. Like, what are we doing? Actually, maybe his stock has crashed a little bit since then, and now if he can get on like a bit of an upward trajectory, and the fans have not turned on this player at all, and they could have, but they haven't. So if he can just start to get up a little bit on that trajectory, that's going to look better. Even if he doesn't get where we wanted him in August, if he can get a bit higher, that starts to feel a bit better.
Yeah. I mean, it's like when you go into the lab and you've been trying to make something happen in science. You can tell I have a lot of experience doing this. And finally, you get it right and you scream Eureka and you've got your results. Like, I think it was Barcelona in Los Angeles where Havertz has the back post finish, right? And I remember watching that, and we're in California, we're talking about it, we're like, that's the blueprint. That's what we're going to see all season long. Get used to it. And we haven't really seen it since. We've seen him have some chances that he's fluffed, but we haven't really seen it since. And Mikel Arteta must have felt like screaming Eureka when he scored this goal, because this had to be the plan. Crashing the box late, arriving at the back post, getting on these balls that, oh, by the way, Saka and Odegaard should be able to serve those in 15 times a game. I mean, if Havertz can ghost into that back post over and over again, I wouldn't want to put it on anyone's foot more than Odegaard's or Saka's left foot to curl that in swinger in. And it worked out just the way you'd want it.
And sorry, to the point again, like at Chelsea, it's Trossard who makes that exact finish to get the equaliser, and like absolutely that ball is on a lot. And to Clive, Clive said that Adrian Clark alluded to the fact he only had three-headed attempts on goal. The other thing Adrian pointed out in the piece is that only Gabriel has won more aerial duels than Havertz this season, so he's really, really good at doing it, and he's winning loads of headers. But where's he winning them? And don't get me wrong, of course there's a use to him winning them in other areas, but what are those headers doing? Like, are they flicking the ball to Gabriel Jesus in the area? Like, they're not really going on goal. Are they going out to, like, where are they going, those headers? Like, this is the guy's superpower, one of them anyway. Like, how are we using it? How are we utilising it? Because he's winning loads and loads of headers, and I'd have to go back and look at them all, but it doesn't really feel like they're doing anything.
Yeah, well, Kai Havertz said, quote, "It was tough for me the last couple of months, but I tried to put my ego aside because the team is the most important thing. I've been so thankful for these guys, the fans. I know it's always hard when a new signing comes and they pay a lot of money for you. They sometimes think it goes quite easy and fast. I'm just thankful for all of them that keep supporting me." And I mean, the lustiness with which the song was sung, 60 million down the drain, Kai Havertz scores again. It's just a beautiful thing. And to Tim's point, I think if there's a player you've really given up on, I don't think you have that level of enthusiasm in the way the song is sung. Mikel had a lot of interesting quotes on Havertz. He is an example for us to do what you have to do when you have difficulties. I think Mikel never says anything unless he's saying it with an intention to gesture towards other people in similar situations. I just think that is very clearly a signal to other players who want to get into other positions in the team and how to handle difficult periods. I'll read some of the other quotes out as well. By the way, if you missed it, there's great video of Mikel literally dragging Havertz by the neck over to the fans to get his flowers. On bringing him over to the supporters, Mikel said he fully deserves it. And when you're there, and sometimes you have to face it, he's done it, he's faced it, he didn't hide. So now go and face the beautiful moment because you fully deserve it. I knew he wasn't going to do that, so I had to push him. Clive, you hate to do the thing where you say we finally found this player. Like, one swallow doesn't make I'm not going to say the thing I usually say, one swallow doesn't make a summer or spring or whatever. There's more to go. But the reason I think this is more significant than maybe the penalty was, it is the thing that we all thought would be the thing when we signed the guy. So has the guy figured out the thing? Has that happened?
Has the team figured out the thing?
That's what
he's been standing in space, mate, for quite a long time. I watch these games close, and I speak about personality. And sometimes you have to make people pass you by your movements and by the aggression of your angles and movements. So if you watch the goal, he does it beautifully. He steps back to create a run on the defender. So he steps away from the goal. As the leg's being cocked back, Saka's leg's being cocked back to clip the ball in. He steps back and he creates a run on the defender. And the moment you see that, you're thinking, oh my God, he might score. Because he's got the momentum, he's got the run. If the ball drops there, he's going to score. All this happens before the ball. With Havertz, mate, to unlock him, for me, it's about his personality and it's about the aggression of his movement. In this game, we're all watchers, avid watchers of the team. The ball goes down the right-hand channel into the corner and he just looked sharp, didn't he? He looked sharp. You thought, oh, he's on it today. And sometimes you see him and think, well, just get the ball to him. And another time you see him and think, he doesn't want the ball. So you just have to try to unlock his personality into the team. So he feels like the guy, like Saka does at 22, that says, I'm going to dink this ball to the back post. I hope it doesn't go out, but I'm still taking it on because it's the right thing to do. And he dinks it to the back post and it ends up being the right thing to do. Havertz got to feel comfortable enough to play the right pass, to take the shot, to take it on from the edge of the area. Take it. Don't worry about it going wrong. And the more goals he scores, the more we're going to see him take those risks. And the more we're going to see him be more assertive in his actions. And that's all I want to see. I tell you, I have seen the talent with my own eyes. Mate, I watched him score one in our top corner at Chelsea. I might have been a pre-season game or a league game. And I just watched it and I thought, cracking, he just flashed that in. So the talent is there, without a doubt. It's about unlocking it. I do think I find him the most fascinating, interesting player in our entire squad. Because the fact in 1 week, he can play left back for his country twice. He's never played there before and do fine. He can play double six. He can play left 8, right 8, number 10, second striker, centre forward. Tell me how many players can do that in the world. Just tell me. Right? Tell me. You might say we can't do any of them very well. Right? So that's
that a
your
feature
choice.
or a bug, though? You know what I mean? Like, is it hard because we don't know exactly how to deploy him to get the most out of him?
That's my coaching head. When you got a player like that, my God, that's the most exciting one we have. You see what I mean? Because you can do stuff with him. He solved a problem at the weekend we couldn't have solved last year. That's not exciting. Those players are so exciting. They make your job so easy because you can plug and play them wherever you like. And what we have to do is open our minds up to his possibility and not just say, I thought he's coming in to be Granit Xhaka and Granit Xhaka plus and give me 10 goals. I feel that deep down. Scott's just done a lovely radar. I haven't read it yet. I just saw it flash up on Granit Xhaka versus Havertz. And Havertz is looking quite favourable at the moment. And looking quite favourable doesn't mean it's solved. It means it's being solved. And he's 24 years of age. And I think there's a lot to look forward to if we can unlock his personality, I feel, to feel like one of the stronger players in the team. And when I start seeing him do some shots over the bar like Tim's mate Thomas Partey used to do, and not worried, when I start seeing that, I know we're on the way because that means he doesn't care anymore. He's got confidence in himself. Take the shots, take the crosses, make the runs, and things will change for him.
Yeah, and just to step back into the amateur psychology thing, it's interesting, isn't it, that Arteta said, I knew he wouldn't go over to the fans and take that kind of, take that moment. That shows you what kind of character we're dealing with, that he is very insular like that. And it does come through in the way that he plays. And, that's a little bit, like you say, we've got to unlock. And again, I'm going to point to a conversation I had recently with Beth Mead again. I was talking about how she'd started a game, and I was like, the attack seemed to be a lot quicker today with you there. And she was like, that's because I shout at people to give me the ball. And she's like, I tell people, first time, don't take a touch. First time, get me in. Like, she doesn't, forgive me for saying this, she doesn't shut up during the game, but she demands the ball. Like, give it to me first time. Give me the ball. I'm over here. Give me the ball. I'm running here. Just that kind of constant demanding, and like her teammates almost do it just to shut her up a little bit as well. But that kind of, okay, there wants the ball, and I think Havertz does have to do
major
a bit
player
of that.
vibes, isn't it, Tim? She knows she's a major player in the team. That's expectation. She's number 2 Ballon d'Or, whatever it is. So she knows, I'm a player. Give me the flipping ball. That's what Havertz needs to develop. That takes time. Hence why I've been saying it's never about talent. It's about, not at this level. These guys are all flipping amazing, right? I watched Kieran Gibbs train once, just one-on-one training. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I used to criticize him. His skills were incredible, right? So
Sure, it wasn't Oxlade-Chamberlain.
no, I'm telling you, mate, I could not believe it. It was just a rehab session watching him come back. I thought he's half injured and he's doing stuff on the ball like that, and I'm thinking, crikey, I've got no chance. And so these guys are all super talented. It's all about their mental state, how we unlock them, how important they feel, how we support them. That's what it's about. And particularly with Havertz, that's a great spot from Tim there. He's obviously a quiet, shy guy. You could see it from his signing video. You could see it, and I do think the club will put their arms around him. And I will say to the fans, most of the fans, we have a quiet grumble, but most people have stayed with him. As far, particularly in the ground, they've been very polite and stayed with him.
Yeah. And I mean, it obviously helps that we're top of the table, that we're winning, that there isn't the same urgency for it to work because we're still quite a good team. The interesting thing for me, Clive, that I just want to touch on with the Kai Havertz thing is how the pecking order is shaping up in terms of who's playing when and how and what. And I think some of it will be horses for courses. To Tim's point, Rice is always going to play, Saka is always going to play. Look, Leandro Trossard is a very good player. Some days, playing Rice and Jorginho together with Odegaard is going to make sense. When Partey's back, it may make sense to play Partey and Rice when Partey's back. Imagine that. Imagine a time. Imagine, if you will. Partey and Rice together, or whatever the case may be. But center forward is a place where we have Gabriel Jesus, and after that, I think there would be a lot of maybe disagreement on what should happen. I would personally, I don't think this will come as a shock to anyone, I would personally like to see Kai Havertz get opportunities there and at least be the next man up in that position. Eddie Nketiah obviously has the trust of his manager. You can, with Mikel Arteta, it's not hard to tell. Reece Nelson didn't get off the bench. Okay. That's not to say Mikel hates Reece or doesn't trust him, but there are players that he trusts and players he trusts less. Smith Rowe has fought for a long time to try to get that trust. Now, unfortunately, injured again. But like Eddie Nketiah has it. And who am I to tell Mikel he's wrong? But I'll admit I'd prefer that it was Kai in that role. Eddie had sort of an interesting cameo in this game because I actually think he did a lot of decent stuff when I watch it back. But the big moment, there's a 3v2. And I got to say, I know there's people putting screenshots out there and saying, what do you want him to do? This pass is really hard. Forget the screenshot. Just go back and watch the video again. It's 3v2. He takes a very straight line directly, into a very obvious position. And instead of driving at the defender, forcing them to commit and giving it to a teammate, say what you want. If you think it was the right choice, great. If you don't, we don't need to microanalyze moments. But I thought it was a poor moment in an otherwise pretty decent cameo. But again, I just think it's interesting that the player has the manager's trust in the way he does, versus maybe someone like Kai who comes on after him. So what do you think about that situation about Eddie? Because look, you'll find very few clubs that focus as much on their backup striker as we do. It just so happens that our starting striker has not been available much over the past season and a half. So what do you think about that pecking order and the trust he has from the manager?
I try not to think about pecking orders too much. There are certain long poles in the tent which we can all name, but none of us picked Trossard left 8 in this game, did we? Pre-game? Did any of us pick it? Nope.
Don't think so.
You would talk about Jorginho. Well, you know what? I spoke about Jorginho and his role in the team. When Odegaard's not there, he is the captain and he is the coach. Odegaard comes back, first player out, Jorginho. Right? So that tells you how the manager rolls.
Too.
Yeah, exactly. They're the ones that make it happen. They are the ones. Will all three of them play any game? Probably not. Maybe, because who knows? So I try and think about pecking orders. Eddie's been sitting there for 2 weeks, had a few days off, sitting there training at the club. They knew he was rested. The other players had played international football, full 90 minutes, etc. I can see a reason why Eddie came on that pitch. I had my thoughts about Eddie. I don't want to get locked into it too much, because I had thoughts about him when he came on at halftime against Fulham and he ripped the game open. Right, so I looked really, really good, and Eddie's put me in the analysis bin more than any other player in our squad. So just like every time I give up on him, he sticks one in the top corner from 30 yards. I think, where's that come from? And obviously they see it. They see that in him. They see something. My consistent theme with him is he's a centre forward that plays for himself, and I prefer a centre forward that collaborates with others. So that's a style thing. You know what? Sometimes, Elliot, when I first started podcasting with you, you liked overlapping fullbacks. As far as you're concerned, that's what you wanted to see, overlapping fullbacks. Some people still want to see that now and judge fullbacks on their ability to get close to the attack. Right? So we all have stylistic biases. I like tall centre mids that can look after the ball. Do you know what I mean? And smash people and don't let nothing come down the middle. We all have our biases. And I think we attack by committee and defend by committee. That's the team I'm seeing. That may change given the rumours that we're seeing. That may change, right? We might have a focal point centre forward. Do we already have one? And we're just not deploying him appropriately. I do think with this group, we just have to squeeze the orange, mate, and get the most out of it. On that pass from Eddie, mate, you've got to pass it. You got to pass it. You can't be leaning back on your shot and trying to curl away in the bottom corner. That's not what you do in the last minute. And you heard me use the phrase teacup before. We said a rugby phrase, thinking clearly under pressure. That's what Saka does. He doesn't take a wild shot and whack it over the bar. He said, I've got to get it into that area. That's the difference. And that's Eddie's development opportunity. Knowing when to be selfish and knowing when there are two people on my right-hand side screaming for the ball and there's a passing lane available for you. I don't care anyone says, that lane was there. That lane was there. And he chose not to do it. And you know what? I watched the manager and he clapped him. He wants him taking these efforts. He wants him doing it. He wants him to show that personality. And I can't sit here and say that's wrong. I'm asking Kai Havertz to do it. Do you see what I mean? To feel okay that he's comfortable in the club to do that. Do I want a better shot? Of course I do when it's 0-0 with 5 minutes ago. I want a better shot. I'm going to get angry about it. But I can't sit here and say I want other people to show personality and take shots. I just feel there was a pass there for him. And on a general point, the reason why Trossard plays for me is collaborative style. And so it's up to Eddie to decide what type of forward he wants to be, because that's going to elongate his Arsenal career. That's where I am with it.
Yeah. It is really difficult to analyze players who are squad players in terms of whether they're good enough to be, the elite player you need in a team that wants to win the title. And I think you can have it both ways. You can be very pleased with what Eddie Nketiah is for the role that he has in this team, or you can feel that he is not good enough for what we need to go to the heights we want to achieve. I think, Tim, the thing that's going to continue to confound people, and you just got to get used to it, I'm coming around to the realization that the manager really trusts this player and is going to continue to call on this player. There will probably be more starts in league games and probably more situations where he comes on ahead of the guy you think should come on ahead of him. I'm sure he trains really well because, I don't think Mikel Arteta would be picking him otherwise. But Mikel seems to really understand this football arc, and he seems to think that what Eddie does is good for what we need to achieve. It's interesting. We did the data review, and it's fascinating because one of the parts of the data review that we do with Giant Kuna with Matt, we go through all the charts of the squad, where people rank in the squad, right? So like his XG or his shots or things like that, he ranks fairly highly. But for things like XG buildup or connectivity data, right? Chance creation data, passing data, he's last among all outfield players in the squad. And you compare that with like a Jesus who's like third or second. Now, again, I know this is that straw man argument because no one's saying Eddie Nketiah is as good as Jesus, but stylistically, it is a big change. I think we probably give Eddie more minutes, more column inches, right? More ink spilled than the role he has. But it is an interesting one. Where do you come away thinking about him, being this trusted by the manager? And is it maybe just a case of we're going to have to just say if Mikel sees something, we just have to trust that instinct,
Yeah, where I am is I'm wondering, does Mikel see something now, or does he see something that's not there yet that he's trying to bring out of him? Does he, because I don't know. I do find it hard to believe that Arteta is looking at Nketiah and going, yeah, I'm getting everything I want out of you. Maybe he is. We're speculating, obviously, but I wonder if he thinks there's another level in this player. There's something in this player, and I want to trust it, and I want to see it, and it just really. And I'm really. On one hand, I'm quite caught between showing the personality to take the shot and all of that, but actually sometimes showing personality is making the pass there instead and making sure the team score. That's the personality thing to do. And it's really fascinating. I go on about this podcast a lot, but the interview Thierry Henry did a few weeks ago with Alan Shearer, Gary Lineker and Micah Richards, and he talked about his evolution and why he started passing in those kind of big moments. He talked about, obviously, that legendary goal against Tottenham where he runs the length of the pitch and he says, do you know what I went home thinking that night? Watch that goal back. Bergkamp's free in the 18-yard box. He doesn't pass to him. He smashes it in the left corner. And he was like, that's what I was thinking of when I went to bed that night. Like that I went, Dennis Bergkamp was one-on-one with a goalkeeper and I shot. And he said, guess what message Dennis Bergkamp sent me that night before I went to bed as well? It was, all right, you got away with that one, mate. And he said he had a conversation with Bergkamp where Bergkamp talked about, because Henry said, but I did that a lot in my career because frankly, I felt, not with Dennis, obviously, but with other players, he was like, I trust myself to score from 20 yards more than I trust the guy I'm passing it to score from 10. But Bergkamp kind of said to him, well, actually, when you were younger at Arsenal, when you started and you couldn't score, I kept passing to you because I realised that in the long term, there was a benefit to me passing to you. And just all of these kind of dynamics that go into it. But at the same time, big players, sometimes they do just do that. And I've typed it in the chat there, but I encourage people to go and watch. As always, Beth Mead scored twice yesterday, her first goal. You watch it back, there is a pass to Frida Mornham on. What does she do? Cuts in on her wrong foot, on her left foot, and curls it in the top corner because she's a big player, big personality, and she can do that, and she knows she can do that. And so there is an element, but is Eddie quite there at that status? Probably not. Listen, short answer, I think the personality is to pass to Saka. I'm with you, Elliot. Sorry, screenshots don't do it for me. Same with fouls and stuff like that. Screenshots show you a moment in time. There's a good 3 seconds there. The angle's on for a good play. The pass is still easier than the shot, frankly, so he should. But I do think he comes on in this game because Arsenal were creating threat in the penalty area. And this did feel a bit more like an Eddie game. And I think I tweeted when he came on, I was like, this game is happening in Brentford's penalty area. That's where it's happening. And that's more Nketiah than it is Jesus. Because Jesus does all his best work outside. That's not where the game is. The game's in the penalty area. So, I think I said this is a big opportunity for Eddie. And actually, in a weird way, that chance was not the kind of chance I think Arsenal were expecting, where they were in a 3v2 situation on the edge of Brentford's box. That didn't happen a lot during the game. It felt much more like the ball's going to bounce around in the area and it's going to fall. And I do think that in that very precise circumstance, I'd probably rather have Nketiah than Jesus. So it felt like a big opportunity for him. And I do think he did some good things. That was a bad decision. And I do think sometimes that's the decision that maybe you get from your backup striker who's desperate to score a goal. And and everything else. But as we've seen in Nketiah, he's moved into a situation this year where he's a bit more than the backup striker. Like, he's the backup attacker. So he is getting a lot of minutes. He is the first off the bench. Like, he's not the spare wheel, he is being used a lot. So I do think he should have the kind of the character and just the presence of mind to make the pass there.
And look, I mean, if Gabriel Jesus was fit more often and more available, and I'm not blaming him for that, by the way, I had a bad knee injury during a midseason World Cup, but like if Gabriel Jesus, for example, let's say he's fit to start 90% of the games the rest of the season, I think the fixation on it will die down a bit. He's started so many league games for us this season, and we're top of the table. So I think he is under the microscope in a way that squad players tend not to be, because he's been thrust into such a prominent position. And it's coincided with a player we signed for a lot of money, probably, not really leapfrogging him. And so those two things have led to a lot of analysis that may become a little unnecessary as players hopefully stay fit moving forward. And then there's the credible links to Victor Osimhen. And like that, the thing that I find very interesting about that is that player is more Aubameyang than Gabriel Jesus. But to Tim's point, you can be a lower touch, lower connectivity player if you can bang in 25 a season, but not if you're going to bang in 11 or 12, right? And that's really what it boils down to. What you have to do for the team changes when you're Erling Haaland. Erling Haaland is not very good at football. He's very good at scoring goals, and that's what Pep opted for. Pep changed his whole thing, his whole system, which used to be connectivity and different players scoring, contributing, and he went to a target man striker who doesn't really build play very well, but 40 goals in a season makes that obsolete. And so there is a level you have to hit if you're going to play that way. And maybe it's Osimhen who can do that. We will certainly be giving a scouting video of Osimhen a go over on the Patreon if you want to join us for that. So as we round out here, look, a huge win at a place where very few teams win. In fact, Brentford has failed to score at home twice this season, once against Arsenal in the League Cup, once against Arsenal in the league.
Arsenal and Arsenal reserves.
Arsenal and the Arsenal reserves have kept clean sheets against Brentford at the G-Tech. And like, no matter how much we need to do with our attack, the fact you must be able to see the quality of our play. And I said this on the instant reaction. There is a difference between being fun and being good. I don't know that we're a hell of a lot of fun right now, but we are definitely very good. And so I'd like to see some of the fun added in, but we've been fun and not good. So I'd like us to be good first, and I will accept fun next. The difference last season is we were very good and very fun for a good chunk of the season, and then we weren't. I don't see the same vulnerability here that I see that we had last season. So that's a big step. Clive, quickly now, we're top of the league. As we get ready to say goodbye, I just want to touch on some of the other results, the obvious one being City and Liverpool. Did you see anything from that game that gives you sort of clarity on or elucidates for you the threat of those two clubs? Because I still believe if anyone finishes above City, they will be champions. That is my default position. But Liverpool are not to be dismissed. That's for sure. So what do you make of that game and the sort of three-way title race, if you see it that way?
Yeah, I watched 2 or 3 games this weekend. Let's start with Man United yesterday. It was quite an interesting one, watching them play, watching their new centre mid run around looking like a very good player for an 18-year-old. I thought they were interesting, got their goals at the right time, which hurt them. Watching Spurs, you want to see what fun looks like. That's what fun looks like. They lost the game. Players all over the pitch. The pitch looks so much bigger than it does when we're playing. Players everywhere because teams are playing them because they're new on the block. Right, so teams are playing them. And then you go to the elite game. You go to the elite game of City and Liverpool, and then you see the principles by which the best managers work and operate. They are slavishly committed to overloading in central areas. They really do focus. Liverpool must have 4 or 5 players tight together, one-touch passing, big rondo out to get up the pitch, great exits in the first half. City get their goal because of a poor goal kick, trying to catch them on the break to get isolations in wide areas. The goal kick drops. It goes to Ake, and Ake becomes a winger into Haaland, who scores. They probably think it's over. The game dies a bit because of the international break for me. It dies. but Liverpool are always in it. I feel with City, and I said this before, I'll say it again, Chelsea, it showed me how to beat City. And they really focus on the central presence and moving Rodri around. Rodri's part at the moment is, and I think Akanji's a great player, but what a buy, 15 million quid. But there's a limit there to his ability on the ball. It's more of a stabilising factor. And then Rodri's now moving around to try to get the shot at the edge of the area and be much more aggressive sixth than he was last season. So trying to move him into areas where he scores. I mean, he scored a Champions League winning goal, so it works for them, doesn't it? Right? So, but for me, get around Rodri, run him around, move him around. You can get to their back line. They conceded 4 goals against Chelsea. And this Liverpool game, Elliot, you watched it. Liverpool had chances, didn't they? Or nearly chances, where one more pass was there. And you don't get near City like that. They showed vulnerability to me. You don't get near him. Darwin Núñez he's not the brightest, mate. His first touch is not very bright. And if he was sharper, they'd have got more quality chances on goal. They boxed Salah out, so they said to Núñez, you beat us. They couldn't quite do it. Jota came in, and for me, the game changed when Kai Havertz came on and started running through their midfield. And the moment that happened, the game opened up, and Liverpool got their equaliser. So I look at Liverpool and City, and we have done, all of us, for the last half decade, and thought to ourselves, God, wouldn't it be good if we were that good? I don't look at them with that inferiority complex anymore. I don't. I think we're right there. Injuries are our only worry. Yes, we've got some attacking deficiencies, but let's make sure our attack is ready for Villa away and Liverpool away. That's what it really matters, because the level of game will be really, really high, and we have to deliver in those 2 games. Hopefully our players will be rested by then, or back in tune by then, or injury-free by then, so we can go to those 2 grounds with not just a good defence, but a sharper attack.
Yeah, well said. Well, it is interesting to watch those teams. I have a hard time seeing either of them going away. I mean, City certainly won't. I don't think Liverpool will either. I think you also saw this weekend, who the pretenders are. I mean, I don't think Spurs are a serious team in the way they defend. Manchester United, by the way, they're thrilled with their table position. They have a 0 goal difference, so congratulations to them getting back to level. They conceded 2.4 expected goals to Everton. And if you don't like underlying metrics, how about just the 22 shots Everton took? Their finishing was diabolical. And that really is the reason why that game wasn't closer or even went another direction. I don't see them as this is the great thing about watching other teams. You appreciate what we have. United's football is dreck. Tottenham's football is not disciplined in the way that it controls territory and the spaces it tightens up. And so you can see these things. And when you watch, Liverpool and City play, you can see the quality there. And I think you see the same quality with us. So Tim, your final thought on that? Do you think is it a 3-horse race in your view? Is there any world you see where there are 2 teams that finish above City? Or you agree with me that anyone finishing above City will be champs?
Yeah, I think so. Look, City, they'll be disappointed. They've played us and Liverpool and they've got 1 point to show for it. So they'll be disappointed with that. I'm not saying that means that they're frauds or anything like that, but that's hard. It's difficult for me to comment on the game. I haven't seen it. I haven't seen the highlights or anything. I think it is going to be a bit of a 3-horse race in that respect. I think these 3 teams are clearly better than everyone. Well, and then you've probably got Newcastle, Spurs, kind of in that kind of tier below, going for 4th and 5th. Maybe Villa come into that as well if they can fix their away form a little bit. But what I will say about the Liverpool City game, by the way, that I don't think we've mentioned, is that it did put a different spin on our game. And the scheduling of games, it matters. It does. It just does matter which order games are played in. And so we came into this, that was the 12:30 kickoff. So all the players knew about it. It's not the 3 o'clock where they can pretend they don't know. It's the 12:30. It's probably the exact result we wanted. And we've got the chance to go top. And first of all, that just didn't seem to be an issue really for anyone. And you remember pretty much this time last year when we went to Wolves, and all right, it was to go 5 points clear. But, City lost earlier in the day to Brentford, actually, and we went to Wolves and it was like, oh my God, we could go 5 points clear going into the World Cup break, and everyone, and the team handled that, to be fair, but it felt monumental. And I mean this in a good way. This didn't feel like being top of the league in November doesn't feel like a novelty anymore. It doesn't feel like a Christmas present. It's just, that's kind of where we expect to be. And we came into this season expecting to challenge for the title on the basis of last season, but there was no guarantee that we were going to do that. None at all. And again, I was thinking this earlier today. I think Arteta more widely doesn't get the credit he deserves for the level of coach that he is. And maybe that's because he is in Pep's shadow in two different ways, both because Man City are so good and also because he literally worked under Guardiola. Like what he's done with Arsenal to make us come to the point where we just expect to challenge for the league. And in how relatively short a space of time he's done that is incredible, because we went to Brentford away, 5:30 on a Saturday, chance to go top of the league, and it felt normal. It felt normal. It just felt like what we all expected. But there's a lot of work that underpins that, and there was a lot of work that had to be done this summer to make sure that we were back in that position, because at the end of last season, like our form from February onwards was not title challengers form. we challenged for the title on the basis of what we did for the first three kind of months of the season. So for us to come back up to that level and say, yep, we're here again. We're here. You might beat us, City. You might do us by a few points, but we're here again and we're a threat to you. I think that, Arteta and the coaching staff deserve a lot of credit for us going top of the league on a Saturday evening and everyone going, yeah, but our attack's still not great, is it? Which I think we're right to do, but it just shows you where the expectations are, and that doesn't happen for no reason.
We're on an 88-point pace, and people are like, yeah, we're okay. I mean, he's gotten to us to a point where we can be on an 88-point pace, top of the league in November, and people are like, we're okay. We'll see how it goes. And to your point, you know what I think is even more impressive is where we go to places like go to Brentford, and granted, they have players missing, I get it, whatever, but go to Brentford, and we just have all the ball in all the game. And that's just expected, that we're going to go to your place, and it's going to be our ball, and it's going to be our territory, and you're going to have to try to cope with that. It is brilliant. It's great to see us in this position. We've got Lons on Wednesday, chance to wrap up our Champions League group with a game to spare, which would be huge when you look at the way the fixtures fall in terms of what we've got for the last game in the Champions League. I believe it's wedged between Villa and Brighton, but we do have Wolves and Luton next in the league. Wolves at home, Luton away, a chance to continue to try to consolidate where we are. There'll be a lot more to come. We might do an Awesome Hen scouting video, as I mentioned. We will certainly be doing things like power rankings and three big things and stuff like that over on Patreon if you want to join us. But otherwise, we're just happy to have you here. We love you so much. We continue to try to, keep our heads screwed on tight as we try to do what we couldn't last season and make this go the length of the season. So Tim is on Twitter at Stillman. Thank you, Tim.
My pleasure as always.
Clive's on Twitter at Clive PFC. Thanks, Clive.
Thank you very much.
My name is Elliot Smith. You can block me on Twitter again. We love you. And we will talk to you after Arsenal 10, Lens 0.